Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Edcuatedcollins Snap channel. How you doing? No intro today. Today, we're going to be talking about 10 decks for you to try in the Marvel Snap meta, in the Man-Thing post meta. I would say that there has been like a standardization. I haven't really been seeing too many new decks or anything interesting for my opponent. We do have some standard decks and some, I guess, newer decks or unique decks to try. So a little bit of half and half, mix of both. And just simple video here today, just showing some decks to play. Hope you guys enjoy it, and I'll see you when we click the video. So we do have a couple of interesting decks here. We also do have some meta decks. It's going to be a mix of both. First one is going to be what I would say is probably the strongest deck in the meta right now, in my opinion. And, you know, that's to be determined, of course. But I would say it's probably Silky Smooth Alioth. Just still think Alioth is pretty good as long as you have a deck that can win the early game, win priority, and that's what this deck does really well. Kraven is just huge value, and Elsa just with this has a lot of synergies. You can move a lot of cards over to other lanes, and it's not really hard to just get full Elsa value. And then once you have that early game advantage, it's not too hard to just pick a lane. Hey, I'm going to win this lane with Alioth. So still isn't really changed too much from the old one, but yeah, this would probably be like, if you wanted like the easiest climbing, this would probably be the one I would pick up. Next up, we do have Man-Thing. So this is a deck with Man-Thing. In there, I wanted to have some representation of the new card. I think this synergizes pretty well. The only issue is maybe Mobius, but Mobius has fallen off a little bit. It's not as high presence as it used to be in the Loki meta. So you could definitely have some games in there. You get to use Black Widow. It's a little bit more effective now as well. So this is just a nice Zabu deck of old. Still lots of good synergy in there. And Man-Thing just gives you another target for Iron Lad and just has some pretty powerful game plans out there. You've got some good tempo or good control options too with the Luke Cage, Shadow King, and the Rogue. So it's not one-dimensional that you need to go Darkhawk to win. You have other ways of shutting down your opponent's game plan. So that's generally my contribution for if you want to play Man-Thing deck. There's other Man-Thing decks. I do like another deck that I'm going to showcase. I think the next deck, you could definitely play Man-Thing in this next deck that I'm going. But this in particular, I think is just a nice, clean deck of old. But Man-Thing fits really well in this one, especially with the Black Widow, right? So and the rocks. So there's just a lot of synergy in this one. But if you do want another Man-Thing deck, there's a Man-Thing in this one, but I think this one's like maybe one of the funner decks to play if you haven't played anything like this. The one caveat is you do need Howard the Duck, which a lot of people don't have. And I probably need to talk about the series drops. It doesn't really feel like they're doing series drops anymore. It's just like, hey, flexibles drops mean no drops, that kind of thing. But in terms of this particular deck, this is a really cool, interesting deck in that Howard has a use. A lot of times when people are playing Iron Lad Howard, like it wasn't really doing much, doing that well. But here you get Howard. Howard lets you control your Jubilee, lets you control your Iron Lad. And what you really want to be doing is you want to Jubilee into like an X, right? That's a pretty powerful combo. Or you can Jubilee into the Spectrum, or you can Iron Lad into Iron Man. There's a lot of little, if you know what's coming, you can like wait until the perfect moments in the 4, 5, 6 turn. You also have Zabu, so you can get Jubilee on 3, Iron Lad on 3 if you need it earlier, right? Based on how the Howard is. So it's just a really nice, fun deck where you get to see what's coming up and actually taking advantage of it in a particular list. You get to run Spectrum, which is a card I really like to play, but it's sometimes hard to find a deck in. But this deck can definitely work and has a lot of good little options to do. The Cosmo, always having a Cosmo in your deck is always a plus, and you can buff it up and really set your opponent into a bad position. So definitely fan of this deck. I think it's really fun to play. So if you want to try something new that still works, this is something you can do. And it's adjustable. You can definitely run Man-Thing if you want, etc., etc. But overall, it is an ongoing list in essence, but you do get some denial tools with the Cosmo and the armor as well. It's pretty good denial. As well as the Professor X has some good tools. So that's why I would call it that. Next up, we have just Elsa. I would say Elsa is just like one of the stronger decks to play right now. And if you just want like a strong deck that does what Elsa wants to do, as well as playing the move deck that we um, recommended, this is another kind of same style. It's a little bit more controlly with Sera, so you are kind of using Sera. So sometimes when people are thinking like, "Oh, Sera's not good," thanks to Mobius, but I would say like Mobius allows you to always get your value off, so you don't get waived or anything like that. Wave is dropped off in priority. So you really do get to usually do Sera things, and Mobius is also underplayed right now, so it's not necessarily like the biggest deal. But here you just get to kind of combo what you want to do and really flood in the last turns, as well as just having control tools like Shang-Chi and Shadow King to really deal with what your opponent wants to do. So this is just like a standard Elsa deck. If you want to play something pretty simple, this is something you could definitely do. Next up is High Evolutionary. I think High Evolutionary, especially this one, this is like a She Hulk version. This one hasn't really changed, but the meta has changed around it. There's definitely less Mobius, there's less Legion, there's less of these like super annoying counters to this. So you actually just get to do the combo a little bit more efficiently. And Leech is still like really annoying, really powerful. It's in the right scenarios. This is definitely one of them, and you get to take full advantage of Cyclops, full advantage of the high evolutionary cards, as well as just doing your big finisher game plan with the Infinite. So it's definitely a very nice archetype to play, as long as people aren't playing like Legion, which has definitely dropped off. You know, there isn't that much Legion in the meta, so you could definitely do a lot of work with this. So you just have to be a little bit careful in that sometimes you don't want to fully set yourself up for like, my only win condition is Infinite, right? But that's where the Hulk is a secondary win condition. You don't necessarily need to go She-Hulk every game as well, as long as you have the right setup. This can definitely do well for you. So this is definitely very playable, very similar to the regular high evolutionary deck, but this one just has another secondary win condition with the She-Hulk Infinite line. Next up, we have Destroy. Now, this is Deathstrike Destroy. This one is a generic Destroy, though you don't necessarily need to play Deathstrike. This is just gives you some function. So a lot of people are playing things like Elsa and stuff, and if you have Deathstrike, you could definitely just kill those off and kill all the scaling cards before. And you do have ramp with the X23, so you don't. It's not necessarily a turn 5 Deathstrike. You can always do it earlier. So if you see, oh, your opponent needs to win with this particular card, you can just kill it off. Things like Lockjaw, things like Iron Man, if you're lucky, right? Usually you don't get to hit Iron Man because it comes down the same time you come down, or earlier. So generally, this is more of a destroy deck, but you do have the Deathstrike to kind of deal with those matchups where they're playing some scaling initial cards that just get annoying. Same thing as Mobius, right? Like, so sometimes people don't want to play Death because, oh, people can run Mobius. You can kill off the Mobius here. And that's something I think isn't really thought about when you're running the Death. You could just kill the Mobius. So it's like running the Death is generally a fine thing to do here, because you have an answer to that Mobius. You're not running the Rogue or anything like that, but you have a meta answer that makes sense in the context of the deck build. So those are the things you want to keep around. But same thing, a lot of people are running 1-drops, right? Any deck that can run Killmonger is just really good. So Destroy has a lot of good things going for it. And if you have these cards, then this is definitely something you can play. Next up, I think we're in the Hela territory. So this is the deck if you want to play combo, and if they don't have Cosmo, you win. Which honestly, a lot of people don't run Cosmo, right? But this is like, if they don't have Cosmo, you just get there, right? So you've got the Invisible Woman into your combo play. So you go Invisible Woman into Modork Hela, those two will pretty much carry you, or you go Invisible Woman into Iron Man Onslaught, Tribunal usually. So that's kind of the the 2 lines you want to do. The magic lets you do the Iron Man Onslaught Tribunal, and then the crystal just lets you fish from the Monarch Hela. So you just have you're just looking for your combos every single game, and if you get the combo your opponent doesn't have the answer, you win, right? So it's as simple as that. Very easy to play if you understand what the 2 lines are, but if you do, then very, 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 very clean game plan. So if you like that, go for it. Next up is another Hela deck, but less reliant on this. This is more of the tempo version of Hela, where your win condition isn't necessarily Hela, but you do get to do a lot of Hela shenanigans. So you're doing a lot of different discards, but you also get to pull out with the Jubilee. So your combos are usually like Jubilee into Odin or Jubilee into setup, so you pull into an earlier Hela. So those are really what you can do. Odin's really powerful in here in that your Odin can hit Hela again, and you're still running Captain Marvel even though you lost the power. It still just gives you some ways of setting up win conditions, winning lanes with Doctor Doom, things like that. So just a nice little Hela build. One adjustment you could run here is you could run Ghost Rider a little bit, but really don't think you necessarily need it in this particular deck. It's still at the end a Hela deck, but maybe less combo centric or less auto losing to like a Cosmo or anything like that. So definitely a list to run if you like this. I was playing this like today. this is what I was running today, and I thought it was pretty fun, so I'll put it in there. And next up, we have classic Shuri Sauron, and I think this is the last list here. This is just like a Sauron list, just a classic. Nothing's really changed here. A lot of people have thought about the Shuri nerf and if it matters. Honestly, I don't think the Shuri nerf mattered. I think the Shuri nerf was just deserved. Like the card was still strong, and this is just a classic Shuri Sauron. Nothing's really changed here. It does work. Nebula is pretty strong in the meta right now. There is definitely less Kitty Prides unless you're playing into the Elsa matchup. So other than that, still has a lot of good synergies, good early game tempo, and you just finish with the Shuri Red Skull Taskmaster. Nothing's really changed. So still a nice, easy deck to play if you want something that you're probably familiar with. This is probably the most familiar deck that most people have at least played once if they have the cards. So definitely try it out, see if you like it. It still works perfectly fine. But overall, those are the 10 decks to try. There's definitely some interesting ones, and then it's just some meta lists. What are you guys playing? I don't think there's too much. There's a lot of decks to play, but there isn't like new decks that I've seen never played before. I think there's a lot of standardization in the meta. So see if you guys have any unique builds or anything cool. That'd be cool. Send me in the comments. But that's all we got for today. Hope you guys are, and I'll see you in the next one.
Edcuatedcollins snap. Once you watch him, you won't go back. He'll teach you to marvel snap. Your skills